of Baal will face destruction, while the true people of God will rise to victory. It's either Baal or Christ. And the first thing I want you to see this morning is that right here in our story, there was a showdown that took place. And I want to suggest to you this morning that there is a showdown coming today. America, the church in America, and the nation of America is headed for a showdown with God. There's a showdown coming. You say, when's it coming, preacher? I don't know. But I do know it's coming. There's a showdown coming. Elijah, the man of God, called for a meeting. God had decided there was going to be a showdown on Mount Carmel. A showdown between the false god of Baal and the true God of Elijah and the people of God. I want you to notice something about this showdown. There was one man against 450 prophets of Baal. Whoo! Sound like a pretty unfair fight, doesn't it? There was one man of God against 400 prophets of Baal. That's a pretty lopsided ratio. What about the church today? Well, I don't know what the ratio is in the professing church of America today, but I'll say this, it's certainly by all appearance, there are a lot more prophets of Baal in the professing church of America today than there are men of God standing in pulpits this morning.
Amen.
That's true.
The good thing is, the good news is, God's true people, the genuine people of God, serve a God who specializes in winning unfair fights.
Exactly.
Yeah, you see it throughout the Old Testament. When the odds were against Israel over and over and over again, God came through. Elijah said here that he felt like he was the only man of God left in Israel. That's pretty bad. And God said over in chapter 19, if you read on, that Elijah wasn't the only man of God left in the land. He said that God had 7,000 reserved, waiting. 7,000. 7,000 other Elijahs who had not bowed the knee to Baal. You know, it's easy for a conservative preacher to feel isolated today. I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, me too.
It's easy for somebody who really believes this book to feel isolated, to be surrounded by a world full of Baal worshipers today. Look what Ahab the king called Elijah. Ahab told the great man of God, the prophet of God, he called him a troubler of Israel. That's interesting. Elijah, what did he do? He pointed the finger right back to Ahab and corrected him. And the man of God said, no, buddy, it's not me who's troubled Israel. It's you who's troubled Israel today. Let me tell you who's troubling the church today. It's the false teachers. It's the lying shepherds. It's the false Christians who are troubling the church today. tell you who's problem or troubling this nation today. It's the lying politician. It's the worshipers of Baal in Washington, D.C. that are troubling this nation. It's the Ahabs and the Jezebels of government across this land who are troubling the nation of America today. The true man of God who dares to take a stand like Elijah did today is considered a troublemaker. God sent us some real troublemakers today. That's what we need. We need some Elijahs to stir the pot up today. The true man of God in the church today is considered a troublemaker. He is accused of being hateful. He's accused of being bigoted. He's accused of being judgmental. He's accused of being narrow-minded. He's accused of being dogmatic. He's accused of being antagonistic. He's accused of being self-righteous. Didn't Jesus say something like, if they call the master of the house Beelzebub, you ought not expect any less? Let me tell you what a true man of God who has a call of God on his life today knows. He knows that the call of God is on his life. And he knows what God has shown to him. And he knows what God puts in his heart. And he knows that he has a fire in his bones like Jeremiah. And he just can't keep his mouth shut. Israel was at a point and time in history where something had to be done. Something had to give. Let me say to you this morning, America is at that point in history today. Exactly. Something must be done. God decided it was time for a showdown. I would suggest to you the professing church in America today needs to have a showdown. One like the day of Elijah. Let me tell you what today's church needs. Today's church needs some Elijah standing in pulpits. Today's church needs some more Martin Luthers from the 1500s standing in pulpits and proclaiming what this book says, rather than some philosophy or some religion. The true men of God in the church today are fewer than the prophets of Baal who have literally overrun the professing church in America. Rest assured, God has an army in reserve. I believe that with all my heart. I believe God has been preparing an army in this country for years. I believe that God has Elijahs that he's been preparing for years scattered all over this country. And when God says, okay, boys, it's time for a showdown, I believe they're going to start coming out of the woodwork. And once again, churches are going to start hearing what thus saith the Lord rather than what thus saith religion.
Amen.
True.
One man of God in this story put 450 prophets of Baal on the run. If God be for us, who can be against us? There is a showdown coming. It's either Baal or Christ. Second thing I want you to see this morning is that the professing church in America today has no power. The professing church of America today has no power. It says here that the false prophets of Baal The false prophets cried from morning to noon. Nothing happened. Heaven was silent. They jumped up and down. They shouted. Probably threw their hands up in the air toward heaven, but nothing happened. Sound like the church today. There's a lot of noise, but nothing happened. Nobody ever gets saved anymore. You know, even in Southern Baptist churches today, the number of baptisms are steadily decreasing. I wonder why that is. Nobody ever gets saved anymore. You know why? Because much of the church today is serving and worshiping a dead God. The false gods of Baal. Baal can't change a homosexual. Baal can't change a drunkard. Baal can't change a drug addict. Baal can't change a prostitute. The modern day Baals of the church today have stripped, polluted, diluted, and compromised the Word of God. Therefore, they have rendered themselves powerless. They don't believe what that book says. They make no attempt to live it, and they don't preach it. When they do, they fail because they seek to do it in the flesh. There's no power in a compromised gospel. Can't sleep with Baal and be married to Christ. The professing church in America today has no power. It's either Baal or it's Christ. The last thing I want you to see today is in the midst of a professing church lies a remnant of God's people. The true church is alive and well, folks. Oh, she may be greatly outnumbered. But outnumbered as she may be, this book says that God's with her.
Amen.
This book says that she's the bride of Christ. She's the apple of God's eye. God has a remnant left in this nation who have not bowed the knee to Baal. God has preachers scattered all across this country who have not bowed the knee to Baal. And the day is coming when there's going to be a showdown in this nation. And the Elijahs that God has been preparing for years are going to rise to the call. And the Word of God is going to be sounded. And the Word of God is going to be heralded. And the Word of God is going to be trumpeted throughout this nation again. Let me tell you what. Eventually, people in the professing church today are going to get tired of cisterns with no water.
Amen.
One day, the people in the professing church are going to get thirsty and hungry for the real God instead of the false God that they've been worshiping for years. When they do, they're going to start seeking out the Elijahs who've heard from God. When they do, they're going to start looking for somebody who spent time on their knees and spent time in this book, who says and knows what thus saith the Lord. It's the voices. It's the voices of modern day Elijahs who are the promise of a revival coming to the church. They will demonstrate